Tibet has a complex history, but its struggle for self-determination has most captured the imagination of peoples across the world. During your campaign to become Sikyong, you emphasized the need to try to resolve the status of Tibet, and if I understood it correctly, to try to do so through constructive engagement with the Chinese government. Now that you are in office, can you see a path forward? What incentive does China have to even consider respecting Tibet's right to self-determination when China already has everything it wants from Tibetans in the status quo? There's no denying that China's invasion of Tibet was illegitimate, but sadly, there is equally no denying that it has proven effective. How is it possible for you to negotiate with the Chinese Communist Party, whose argument is force and whose objective is to maintain the submission of the many peoples in its grasp?
Tibet's history is quite complex, but if I put it in a simple manner, Tibet was a powerful empire between 7th to 9th century. We had captured the then capital of China called Xi'an in the east, and our army even went up to the present-day Samarkand in Uzbekistan. That is between 7th to 9th century. Then there was a 400 years of disintegration and principalities governing themselves. Then there was this relation between the Mongols and the Tibetans. The relationship between the Mongols and the Tibetans are older than the Chinese Yuan, what they call as Yuan after Kublai Khan invaded China. So our relation with the Mongols much earlier than Mongols' relation with what they call Yuan, eventually, which became Yuan, but it's actually a Mongol empire. So Yuan existed even before the Mongols existed even before the Yuan, and Mongols existed even after the Yuan. But from a Chinese historical perspective, which unfortunately is the major source of historical narrative in the West, they claim that even Mongols are part of Chinese. So in that sense, they can claim over half of Europe also, of which Genghis Khan invaded. So those are different stories. Then our relationship with Ming from 1368 to 1644 through 3 Tibetan dynasties, also not much. We didn't have much relation with the Ming. Then the relations with the Manchus started from 1644, but 2 years preceded the 5th Dalai Lama's ascendant to the political and spiritual leadership of the Tibetans inside Tibet in 1642. And the Manchus came into being only in 1644. So there are 2 books now, if the listeners are interested in reading. One book is by Michael Van Walt van Praag and his wife, Meek Boltius. His last assignment was in Stanford, and he had, before 2 years, altogether in almost 8 years, he met with more than 70, 80 different scholars in Inner Asia, not depending only on Chinese sources, and conclusively proves that whether it's the Tibetan-Mongol relationship or Tibetan-Ming relationship or Tibetan-Manchu relationship, which is the Qing dynasty, Tibet has never been considered part of China. And at the same time, there is one Chinese professor called Professor Lau Hampton, who is a retired professor, now lives in San Diego. He was always confronted with this question as to whether Tibet is part of China or not. And he referred to the imperial Chinese records of the Yuan, which is again vetted by the Ming. Ming history is also vetted by the Qing. So he went through all these historical documents laid down by the Chinese emperors, or the Mongols, or the Ming, or the Manchus, and he proves without a doubt that Chinese emperors during these periods from 1254 to 1911, Tibet has never been considered part of China. So that is why we try to put out this narrative to send a message to the Chinese government also, that we follow the middle way approach, that is to seek a negotiated, mutually beneficial, lasting solution through non-violence, because we follow non-violence. But at the same time, now we tell the international community with this narrative to focus on the historical status of Tibet. that Tibet is was an independent country is now under the occupation of China. If that narrative does not go through, the Chinese propaganda is so strong and so pervasive all around the world that everybody thinks Tibet must have been part of China since antiquity, as they call it now. But the reality of the situation is that Tibet was an independent country, but we are seeking middle way approach, not separation from China, considering the realities of situation inside Tibet and the size of Tibet of 2.5 million square kilometers. So all this considered, His Holiness gave a lot of thinking, and now we tell the international community that if you keep repeating this statement that Tibet is part of China at the behest of the Chinese government, then you are going against international law, because the only one agreement that we have with the Communist Party is the 17-point agreement, which was also signed after the invasion of Chamdo that you mentioned in 1950, and the agreement was signed in 1951. So any agreement for post-aggression is considered illegal in international law. So that is what we tell governments. And at the same time, we also tell governments that you support negotiation between the representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the Chinese government. So these two doesn't go together. It's contradicting each other. China is ruling Tibetans inside Tibet with an iron hand, and they're trying to seek legitimacy from the international community. Otherwise, do we have any other cases where countries have invaded other countries and then ask other countries to say that this part is ours? That has never been the case. It's happening only with Tibet. So then the question arises as to why China forces other countries to say that Tibet is part of China. Because Chinese government knows that they have no legitimacy to rule over Tibet. And that is why they are trying to seek legitimacy from the international community. But even the international community cannot grant that legitimacy to the Chinese. It's only His Holiness the Dalai Lama or the Tibetan people who can do that. Now, when we talk about resolving the Sino-Tibet conflict, we take two facts into consideration. One is that through non-violence and the middle way approach, it's not possible to resolve the Sino-Tibet conflict without talking with the Chinese leadership, whoever it is at that time. So we will need to continually reach out and engage with the Chinese leadership, also considering the international scenario as to how much or how far we can reach, or is there any prospect or not. You also raised the issue about what China gains through this. So we are fully committed to reaching out. We have sent the same message, consistent message over and over again to the Chinese government. Right now, we are going through, as we speak, the whole world political scenario is changing, it's evolving, it has become very dynamic. And every single day we have to watch the developments. So we will try to reach out, but in the meantime, we have to study the reality of the situation inside Tibet and tell the reality to the outside world and try to seek support from the international community. But the second reality is also the fact that we don't expect any other country to put aside their national interests and put the national interests of Tibet first. That is not possible. So with these two realities into consideration, we reach out to the Chinese government and the international community. And right now, things are changing a lot. People's perception of China is changing. There is a lot of realization. It has already been there in the United States, but there is also a lot of realization in Europe. Also, the fact that the immediate problem is Russia and Ukraine, but the long-term challenge is definitely China.